welcome the women of property in Cape Town and Lisebo. So we'll start with you, Lisebo. And what made you choose property?
So I've always loved property. From being a kid, I've always imagined building a house or doing something in that space. But the biggest thing was pushing the button when demolishing a building. I've always wanted to do that. And then I looked into it. And then I read about property development. And then I started looking for schools that did that. And then I went to UCT. And I did my BSc in property studies.
Okay. That seems to be the way a few people around this table got into the property space. Tamsyn, what made you choose?
I actually had a couple of family friends that you come to when you're in that little bit of a panic zone and coming to the end of high school and you're like, I don't know where to go. I've got, these subjects and there's these doors. And I found property studies was that perfect balance of kind of commerce, but then that practical construction and engineering side of things too. And it just seemed like a really great match for me, and I'm glad I did it. So I did BSc Property Studies at UCT.
Okay. And for others, there were different ways of getting into property. Karen?
So mine was very different. So I actually started off my property career in travel, corporate travel, where mainly on the finance and management side. And it was actually one of my mentors who, after 9 years of me being in travel with her, she moved on to work for SEEF. And after about 6 months, she said to me, I would absolutely love it. I need to join her. And so I ended up completely by default. I worked at the waterfront then, which is part of the most exclusive real estate in South Africa. So I was really lucky. And from there, I just went residential. I was only in residential for about a year and a half. And then from there, kind of just landed in the commercial sector. I threw myself in. My boss, well, at the time I was working for SEEF. I sold a block of apartments to an investor, and the investor then approached me and said he wanted to start a property portfolio in South Africa, and said, do I know of anybody who can start it and run it for him? And I thought, well, let me put up my hand. I didn't know anything about commercial property at all, but I suppose that's one of our lessons as well, to learn that you just say yes and you will be able to do it. That's how it started. Met Wayne. Our daughters were at school together. We kind of joined forces, and then since then, I suppose it's been history. How long has it been? 10 years? 11?
It's behind every successful woman in property is a bewildered man. Which is probably that big. And Rowena, your entrance into property, was it as spectacular? Obviously not, I wasn't there.
I didn't think Karen said anything about you and her property coincide.
Exactly, thank you, Rowena.
But anyway, I started on a different level. I studied commerce at UWC years ago, and then I went into an NGO. My first job as an NGO was a counsellor for small, medium enterprises, and I did that for a few years. It was extremely painful. It's getting involved with people at a level where you really know what's going on in their households. And then started working with Nedbank and doing asset-based financing, and that's how I progressed into property as one of the offerings of the bank, and that's 20 years ago. 20.
Have you been in property finance for 20 years?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. So, so that I remember Russell Ings, big name long ago. Yeah, still mentored me at the time.
And so I understand how people got in, and how did you learn the trade? Yours was...
So mine was 100% my late father. He used to drive me around in the garden routes in his bakkie and we would go and have a look at property investments, go and look where we can buy property, subdivide property. We went to meetings with town planners, and he just got me very excited about the property industry. Later, to his disappointment, I went to UCT and I studied business science. And in my third year of organizational psychology, he said, I think you should go into professional property practice. And at that point, I changed over to the property studies, and I managed to complete the 4 years in 2 years using some of the credits, and I've never looked back.
And you then learnt the craft in the valuation space to start with.
Yeah, so I was advised that that's the area to commence your property career. And I'm very, very glad that I did, because it's really held everything in property is the underlying basis is what determines value. And it's been a fantastic, I meant to actually not stay in it that long, but I enjoyed it so much that I did stay, well, most of my career was in property valuations, and only recently have I moved on to other areas of property.
Lara, I know how you got in, but where did you, because studying is getting the academics, but where did you learn about the business?
I was probably about 6 years old on a development site telling them to build me a princess castle with a moat. They must not build the house, I need a princess castle and a moat. It's probably one of the earliest memories I remember, but every holiday I was working at one of the businesses or somewhere with my father or my uncle or my aunt somewhere. I was doing that work. So doing site inspections, visiting tenants. That was throughout all my school holidays, varsity holidays. So I think it started at a young age, safe to say.
And has it been what you thought it would be?
Yes, and more. I think it's really such a special industry that if you're passionate about it, you don't actually consider yourself working. I don't mind working extra hours or longer because it doesn't really feel like it. I'm just so involved with what I'm doing and love it so much that I want to finish whatever project I'm working on or get it done.
And Lisebo, has it been everything you hoped it would be?
It's been interesting, to say the least. I mean, it's one thing learning the theory in varsity, that property is an appreciating asset, and then it's always going to be going up, and then life happens. COVID, and then there's looting, and then there's all these things that you have to learn on the go. So it's been very interesting.
When you finished studying, did you go straight from your studies into, you were at MDA?
So I went to Eris.
Oh, okay.
I did the grad program there, so I was able to go into different departments and then kind of get a feel of what I actually wanted to do. And then I actually wanted to go into property development, but there were no vacancies for a while. So then I started in property management, and then now I'm in asset management. So it's just a little bit of everything.
In Tamsyn, you're 6-7 months in,
Yes.
and it's still what you hoped it would be.
It has definitely been an adjustment from what you learn at varsity. You have your certain standard theory, and then you get into practice and you're like, wow, the real world is far bigger than you anticipated. And it's definitely exceeded my expectations. There's areas of property that I didn't even know existed. I had only touched on commercial asset management at varsity. We hadn't really got into the crux of it. And now when you kind of join a company and you're thrown a couple portfolios and some properties to manage, you learn very quickly on the job. Like Karen said, you can do anything if you just say yes. And it's worked out for me so far, and I really am enjoying it.
So Rowena, you're quite senior now in the property space. We won't say old, senior in the property space. And has it been all that you'd hoped it would be?
Before I say, before I give you that answer, I was thinking with the young ladies sitting around me, I don't think they've gone through more than at least even they've gone through one cycle, downturn cycle, but I've at least gone through 2. So there's no rose-colored glasses here on this face. And it's been great personally to grow through applying my knowledge to this industry, and having been in the risk side of things in the bank, and then as well as customer relations, looking after portfolios. I don't think I could have done anything else that is as satisfying as writing a transaction, seeing it come about, getting the client accepting it, seeing the building going into ground, and there's your, and enjoying the end product, especially when it comes to affordable housing or social housing or just anything in terms of housing. And I think that speaks back to where I started, in that looking after people. Now, when I look at funding whatever residential scheme, at the end of the day, we are putting people into houses and contributing to
role models, because in the property space there aren't that many women, and so perhaps we should talk a little bit about who were, for the new ones there are probably some women role models, but perhaps for those who started out there weren't. So any role models for you?
Definitely two that stand out. Bronwyn Knight, she is absolutely fearless. The work that she's doing in Africa, and Amelia Beatty, she's fantastic, kind person, wonderful leader, and she does a lot to promote women in the industry.
Lisebo?
So I was recruited by Nosipiwa. She inspired me. She's done a lot in the time that she's been working. I think she started in Investec and now she's back there. She was a role model for me. Still is.
Miss Powerful.
Yes. Nosipiwa Powerful.
And for you, Rowena? Any female role models 100 years ago?
She's most probably my age, but Nyami Mandide has always been someone that I look up to, and with everything that she's done and who she is, I admire her personally for what she's done. And Lara heads up you headed up the Western Province, and I know you're younger, but when I look at you, then I think, wow, if only I had her energy.
And youth.
Anyway, so that was you. Lara has done such a lot for Western Province. I think the women sector, the
Women's Property
Network. So the female among us, and even especially at work. I mean, there's a lot of things are happening now, but for a long time there hasn't been anything in that space. Good.
It was
good
interesting being at Varsity. We never really had it. They tried. It was really the early stages of the WPN, bringing it into the universities, but it didn't really have the momentum that it's gathered now, especially in the past 4 years, coming through with the new student chapters. So Tamsyn was a committee member on the student chapter. UCT was one of the first universities to get a fully fledged student committee and society, just really enabling women coming through the degrees to have just a little bit of help meeting industry professionals, getting to know who they can speak to about potential graduate opportunities and what different roles there are in the industry. And that really has played a big part of the Women's Property Network, and especially the Bursary Fund, which is a very passionate point for me, and I would probably say that a lot of the students that have come through have been a great inspiration, and I don't mind giving as much time or finding time to help them to see how we can just enable them to achieve. And now seeing where they've landed up, I still get tears in my eyes because they're just doing so well. And it's good. It's nice to see that the time and effort that you put in has a reward, and it's really helping out there.
And you think there are enough women's organizations, enough support for women? It's largely male industry, and in Cape Town it's not only largely male, it's male and pale. And so it's sometimes those structural elements are ingrained. And is there enough support for women in this space?
We support one another. And I definitely think that there are a lot more men in senior positions, management and leadership positions, that can help and assist in being mentors to women who they believe in, to kind of take them up the ranks, because it's obviously, as you said, a very male-dominated industry still, specifically in the leadership, sort of kind of top management element. And I think those men who are advocates for change are the ones that can make a big difference. So introducing them, as you said, in terms of relationships, introducing women who they believe in to the right organizations and the right people, taking them into the boardrooms with them, to help them and hold their hands, and so they can become more confident, because I think that's one of the biggest issues for us as women as well. We are our own worst enemies in terms of the fact that we don't have that confidence and belief that we can do it, where most men will just go, yes, I'll do it, and then try and figure it out later. So I think we support one another, but there definitely can be more men who support us as women and women in leadership roles.
And women in ownership, I think there's quite a lot of women in the space, in management roles and the likes. But are we seeing enough women coming through the ranks being property owners? And I'm not talking about a single house. I'm talking specifically within the commercial property space. And from where you sit, Lisebo, what could be done to help that along? Because the barriers to entry in property ownership tend to be pretty high. And in Cape Town, they tend to be higher because property values are so much higher.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of diversity still, especially in leadership roles and things like that. I do get to meet some through the Women's Property Network, I think, and maybe support and still networking functions. But I think there's still a lot that needs to be done. Personally, trying to get into the industry, so I had no family or a network per se when I started, and it was difficult to know which doors to knock on and how to even get to meet people or interact with people and find a mentor. So I'm glad that that has changed slightly at UCT.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot still needs to be done. And I get questions all the time from people who are studying property. Just, okay, so how did you get to where you are? What can I do? Can you help me? Can you introduce me to people? And yeah, I think I'm not sure how to fix that. But I agree. The men who are already in those positions need to be able to bring other people up.
We lift as we rise.
No, but also I think
you would be able to, because you do the financing side. So what is the diversity there in terms of ownership?
Yeah, I had a discussion regarding that recently. I don't see a lot of ownership. I see a lot of women being involved in the industry and quietly getting on with things. So I see Karen and Kim, and I see many such women quietly getting on with it and not blowing their trumpets about it. And but when it comes, so of the few women that I know that owns commercial property directly, such as Karen, I don't deal with a lot of clients, female clients who actually own commercial properties, maybe owning shares in those entities, but not direct ownership. And then definitely, I think the one thing that we mustn't forget, which is what you said, we are excluding that, but a lot of women own residential properties. So we all own those properties, and we should be using those assets as a springboard to commercial ownership or commercial property ownership, which is maybe where the real networking would bring us to, but because we're so quietly and diligently getting our work done and getting the deals done, that's not where we go.
And I think part of it's also to do with the fact that we don't put ourselves out there. So, I mean, I wouldn't have ended up owning commercial property if it wasn't for Wayne taking me along with him. Yes, I did all the work.
Behind every successful man, there's a woman doing the work.
You and I did all the work. Exactly. But he took me along with that, with it in terms of the shareholding, etc., which again many men don't do. So, and that's where we can start changing things. And just again in that confidence levels and allowing, as Rowena said, we are often the ones doing the work and the implementing and doing the hard graft. And we don't want to blow our own trumpets because we actually really don't care. It's the fact, we want to make a success of what we're doing. And it's somebody saying, you know what, I can see what you're doing and I'm going to take you along in terms of that, to share in the reward.
I think traditionally, because men were typically the breadwinners and women were at home, women just didn't really have the power of the purse. But it's changing now, and many more women are in positions where they can buy property. But I think traditionally, that's why 9 out of 10 buyers and sellers are men. I've seen that when I was a broker, always dealing with men. There's hardly ever an opportunity to deal with women.
But I think Rowena touched on it. I think sometimes by one's nature you are risk averse, and so you don't want to take the risk. You don't want to put your house down as security to go and buy the next property, because it's just one's nature to be risk averse, and men tend to be more gung-ho. Screw it, let's do it. It's why there are more men who make motor car accidents than women, because they're happy to take the risk. So I think it's also going to be important that the successes, when women do get it right, get shared, because it's out of those successes that others see it's possible.